Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks again, everybody, for jumping on. Going to look at a handful or so things that came out in May's release, which was last Monday, and a lot of kind of smaller features that are going to be kind of more quality of life things that kind of all add up into bigger impacts. So that's been the theme, I think, for the last couple releases. A lot of core feature requests that come directly from folks like you, quality of life improvements. And so that trend kind of continues with this release. So to start, we have had term replacements in the system. Term replacements meaning that if you call students candidates or candidate students or companies, organizations, or any different terminology that you may have in the system, we've traditionally had term replacements for those. We technically have not had one for recruiter. We could change most places, like the menu items, the status, a lot of things that would say recruiter, we changed to contact very often, but we'd have to do that kind of manually in some places. And there were actually a couple places where it was still hard coded to say recruiter. So we just implemented a term replacement to address those last couple areas that would refer to recruiter, assuming that you called it something different like contact. But it is kind of contact by default now, because that seems to be the vast majority of cases is folks are calling recruiters contacts within the system. But again, this is flexible. So if you need something changed from recruiter to something else or from contact to something else, that term is now available and will hit all areas of the system. And I just highlighted a couple areas where you may have seen recruiter still floating around, like add contact down here on the right hand bottom right would say add recruiter, or change recruiter status versus change contact status. So a couple of those areas that still had recruiter floating around have been updated. Next is a system logo. Your system logo is a shortcut back to the dashboard or homepage, and that's for all audiences. So this was technically possible for some time, but we had prevented doing it because there was a way for both students and employers to kind of bypass the forced registration process upon their initial login or profile creation, where they have to walk through the registration wizard process. They could bypass that by clicking the logo and being taken to the dashboard. So it was never enabled historically for that reason, but we just kind of fixed that to where if they're on any registration screens, the logo is not accessible. It's visible, but they just can't click it and skip that and go to the dashboard. But as soon as they finish registration and kind of get into the core of the system, the logo will now take you back to the home page. And again, that's for admin, students, and employers. And we did that just because it's common practice for web pages in general to have that type of functionality. So that's been done across the board. We actually just scripted that on for everybody a couple of days ago. So your users will probably just start figuring it out. If you're an admin, often feel free to click it and you should be taken back to your dashboard. Next are a couple new automated email templates that are optional. They're available at your site already. They don't have to necessarily be configured to display. They're not active right now. We kind of brought them and made them available, but with no text in the subject or body, so they wouldn't automatically run. But if you do want to use these, all you have to do is go find these email IDs. I put them here in the screenshot: 385 for employers, 386 and 387 for students. And the concept for these emails is just an automatic email that triggers right when they create a profile. So in the top section here for students, there's actually two methods for them to be able to create an account or a profile. One is kind of a self-registration or account creation. So if you do have certain populations that they're able to access the login link and kind of self-create, that is the email template that would run when they self-create. For those of you that import either through the admin import tool, through SFTP imports, I believe through API as well would count. This imported email template is the one that would run to them. And then the 385 here for employer, there's just one email template for that because employers can only be kind of created one way. You can technically import recruiters. It's a big edge case. Most of the time they're self-creating. So it's just the one template that runs. And you can see there's variables in here, basic variables: first name, last name, email address and username, and then the login URL. And so the concept here is just kind of a welcome email. So this is just something that again, little quality of life feature. Feel free to use it if you'd like, but it's meant to just be kind of that welcome email, right? I've either been imported or I self-created an account. I'm going to automatically get an email upon that account creation with whatever content that you want to include. And then there's some helpful variables in there that I just mentioned. So again, if you want to enable those, you just go find them where you modify your emails, build the email how you want, and they should start running. Okay, next thing here is this screenshot. We're on a company profile. So in this case, it's the GradLeaders company. I'm on the contacts tab, and there's just a new little last name search box. This box is other places in the system. It's meant for just a quick search by last name. This had not been there for looking at contacts on the company profile from this view, from this tab. But some schools had brought this up, like, hey, we have, you know, McKinsey, and we have 200 contacts, and it takes me forever to go find, you know, Paul Smith, whatever the case is. And so I have to go page by page or in Control F to try to find the S's. But now there's a last name quick search there. So even in this case where I have just 10 contacts on here, I could easily scroll. There's only 10. It's not a big list, but I could use the last name search, and it's going to anchor me right to the first user that has a name that matches what I typed in there. So again, little quality of life thing that's automatically on for everybody. So no configuration needed there. Next is another thing that I believe we did turn this on across the board as well. Dave, somebody could keep me honest on that. Just throw it in chat if I'm misremembering, but I think this should be on for everybody. And this is a huge help, primarily for graduate schools where there's a lot of PIDs or subsets of audiences, buckets of students. But this is a new profile selector section. This is on the right-hand side when you're looking at a student's profile, right under the action section. And this will show you all of the PIDs where this student has a profile. So in this case here, this example, this is one of my test profiles, as you can see. And I'm in a lot of different PIDs, right? I'm in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 PIDs. So that's a ton. That's probably more than you're going to normally see, obviously, but this is just a good example of how this works and what it looks like. So all of these different PIDs, I can click on any of those, and it's going to take me to that student's profile within that PID. So if I clicked on alumni or class of 2020 second year, it would automatically open this student's profile in a new tab for that PID. So it's a very, very quick way to get to student profiles across different PIDs. Maybe I'm looking at a current second year and I want to look at their first year profile. It's very easy for me to do so. Whereas previously, I'd have to go switch my PIDs to the first year PID and then look up that student. Now I can just one click and I'm there. It does designate with this little arrow in bolding which profile I'm currently looking at. So in this case, I'm currently looking at the class of 24 first year profile. It does notate which is the default profile. So in this case, it's the class of 23 second year is my default. You can see that parentheses default. For those of you, default profile means when that student logs in, what is the profile that they're taken to, right? What's their current default profile? So again, very helpful primarily for graduate schools, but we turn it on across the board because even for those of you that have more perpetual PIDs, like a traditional single student PID, single alumni PID, it's still useful to have that. And we just wanted to turn this on across the board. So again, this should be live for everybody. I will say if for some reason you don't have access to a specific PID, it still shows you that their profile is in that PID. It just won't let you click it because you don't have a current subscription is what we call it, or access to that PID or product, but it will show in the list still. So if you ever see one in there that's not able to be clicked, that's why you just don't have access to that PID, but you can still see that their profile exists in that PID.
Aaron, the profile
Yes.
selector the permission was added to every admin permission group that had the view profile permission. So if they could see the profile before, then they get this new function.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so any of your users that already had access to view student profiles will see that new profile selector section. Thanks, Dave. Okay, next is the ability to embed videos into the resource library or document library. Some of you still may have it labeled as document library, but historically we've been able to manage different types of files, right? You can upload a file that could be PDF, Word, Excel, and then you had a URL. So that could be a website link, a link to a YouTube video, WebEx recording, whatever the case is, any external URL would work. The first thing we did is this is kind of the main grid of all the documents. We cleaned this up a little bit. This second column of type used to be little icons that would have a PDF icon or an Excel icon, and we just cleaned that up to spell out the file type to be a little bit more clear versus just using really small borderline illegible icons unless you had pretty good eyes or are used to what those icons look like. So we just did a little bit of cleanup here, nothing dramatic on this kind of main page or grid, but just wanted to call out it was redesigned a little bit. But the core of the new function is the ability to have a new document type. Instead of file or URL, which you still have, you have embedded video. And when you choose embedded video for your document type, you get this embedded video HTML box. And the concept is here, if you have a video that's hosted, right, YouTube, Vimeo, any type of software or place where you're hosting a video, there's the concept of an embed code. And all you have to do is copy that. And for YouTube, it's real simple, right? If you're watching a YouTube video, you can right click and there's an option for copy embed code. And then you just paste that right into this box, HTML and all, and then you save it. And that's a new file type. And the biggest difference between embedding a video and linking to a video. So let's say I embedded this YouTube video versus just putting a document type of URL and putting the YouTube link in there, is that for the user experience, if it was just a URL, I click it and it's going to take me out to YouTube or to Vimeo or whatever other provider, wherever it's hosted, and take me out there, and that's where I'm going to watch it. Embedding it keeps them in the system, so it does open a new tab, but it keeps kind of the system framework, the branding and everything, and lets them watch the video here within the application. So you can see this one as an example is an embedded YouTube video. So I could click that watch on YouTube and go out to YouTube and watch it. But when I click that document or that resource, since it's an embedded video, it opens a new tab, keeps me in kind of your branded site, and just lets me play the video live. So just a better user experience. And this was actually a suggestion from one of our newer clients as well that we think is very helpful. So this is on across the board as well. So as long as you have access to your document or resource library, the embedded video is a new option for a file type. Okay, next, we're going to talk a little bit about some employer company event related things, primarily multi-company event. So the historic process has been, if I'm an employer, I can request to come to a multi-company event. Maybe that's a career fair, a networking night, any company event where you allow multiple companies to come, they make a request. And then once they make a request and you're able to confirm or decline, that's it. Once you confirm or decline, that person could no longer request to attend that event because they've already kind of been through that process. You've already made a decision, right? You've confirmed them, put them on the event, or you declined them and not put them on the event. But now there's this kind of newer process is, let's say you confirm a request and you link them to that event, but now you're able to remove them from that event. So let's say something came up, they backed out, they're not able to pay it, there's a fee, whatever the case is, and you've confirmed their request, but now you need to remove them from the event. There's a new pop-up that says, hey, do you want to change the status of their request to canceled? And if you click no, then that's fine. The process is how it's always been, right? They are removed from the event. They've already submitted their request. That's kind of the end of that workflow. But if you click yes, you want it to be canceled, then what that does is puts that request in a canceled status. There's a new canceled tab in your requests page. And the canceled means that they're able to re-request. So it basically puts them into a status where they can resubmit that request. Maybe more of an edge case. A lot of you probably have obviously more experience with me working directly with employers and requesting events, but there's probably situations where a request is made, it was confirmed, they were removed from the event, and then they're like, oh, I can come back, right? And you need them to kind of resubmit that request. You could always manually add them back to the event, but this is just giving the system a little bit more flexibility and just another branch on that workflow that can just kind of extend it and let them request again if need be. So again, it's going to be an additional prompt if you do remove a company from a multi-company event that had requested to attend in the first place. And then you have the option, right? Do you want to mark that as canceled just to open up the opportunity for them to request again potentially? Or do you not want to cancel it and it just leaves it in the current state that you had it, right? Whether that was in this case confirmed, right? Because they were on the event, and that's the end of the workflow. So really minor change, probably going to accommodate some edge cases. If any of you guys can think of a reason why this would be helpful, you want to share for the group real quick, feel free to throw it in chat, come off mute. But I know this was brought up for a couple specific instances where this would have been helpful. So we kind of just knocked it out as a pretty simple change and just turned it on just in case it's useful. So the next thing here is still on the topic of multi-company events, companies. This is really around payments though. So for any of your multi-company events that deal with fees or costs to attend, registration fees, whatever that may be, this is a new concept of an external payment link. And so the use case here is, okay, I'm Aaron and I am the recruiter for GradLeaders and I request to attend your event and I added my registration fees, but I'm not the one who pays, right? There's somebody else in my office, my AP department, whatever the case is that has the authorization to pay. You know, historically, it's been somewhat cumbersome, right? That either me, I have to get my credit card information from someone in AP, or they have to trust me to run the payment in the system. I have to handle it, or I have to say, hey, you have to go make an account so you can log in and pay. And sometimes you might even have to put that person who can pay as the contact on the event, just so they can access the invoice and access the payment screen, and quite a bit of hoops to jump through. So what we've done is created this payment gateway link or external link. In my screenshots here, this top one is the admin view. So I'm looking at the company event. I can see that BuyerWare has signed up. Scott is the contact, or sorry, BuyerWare recruiter is the contact. Scott's the account manager. And there's an icon here. So this is the admin side, new icon for payment gateway link. So that's how you as an admin can get this link and send it to whom you need to, but also on the invoice. So either you as an admin, if you look at the invoice, or the employer gets their invoice, the link is generated there as well. And so what that does is allows them to click that link. It doesn't prompt them to create an account or log in or anything, but it does prompt them to enter the invoice number and just do a little reCAPTCHA pop up here, just for security reasons, so they're not a bot or anything. But once they do that, then it takes them to the normal cart page that we're used to, right, where they can complete their credit card or payment information and submit payment. So a lot more easy now for any of your employers to get that link and pass it on to somebody who can submit payment for the event, versus jumping through a bunch of hoops that you may have had to do historically. So very easy process, very easily accessible for either admin or employers to get that link and pass it on. And that's it. So yeah, pretty quick. A lot, like I said, a lot of kind of little things here and there, a lot of quality of life stuff. I think these are kind of going to make a pretty big splash from an administrative perspective, especially things like the profile selector, that external payment link, I think are going to be really helpful. But I'll pause and see if anybody has any questions. Feel free to throw it in chat. Dave, anybody on the GradLeaders side, feel free to let me know if I missed anything. Yeah, otherwise we can depart now and catch you next month, but I'll sit around for a minute or two, see if anybody has any questions or anything.
To Lynn's question in chat, what about uploading videos without links? For example, we have several Zoom presentations that we recorded. It'd be nice to be able to add those records to the library. The bottom line is most videos are just too large for upload. We've got an IIS, an Internet Operating System limitation in terms of the size of the file that can be uploaded into our system. The videos are generally too big. That's why we went the embedded route. So if you've got those Zoom presentations anywhere else, like if they're on any other video sharing service, whether it's YouTube, Vimeo, etc., it's pretty easy to get the embed code to put in the library. But if they're just Zoom links, I can tell you what we do here at GradLeaders is we just have a private YouTube account for our company. And so we take, like Aaron's webinar here, this is going to be a recorded Zoom meeting. We take it, somebody here takes it, cuts it, saves it as whatever format they need to upload to video to YouTube, and it goes on the private YouTube channel, and from there we can get the embed code.
Yeah, I think it's worth checking on some Zoom settings too. I feel like I just talked with somebody about this within the last week or so since we re-released this, and we were looking in a little bit, and if Zoom even had an embed code, themselves, since they're kind of hosting the recording. That might be possible, Dave. I'm not sure. I didn't look into it fully. We kind of did it on the fly, but it's worth. You said Lynn asked that, so Lynn, it might be worth just double checking to see if there's a way you can do it in Zoom. But Dave's suggestion of how we convert our Zoom recordings to YouTube is totally valid, but it's probably worth just double checking to see if Zoom does supply an embed code somehow.
Thank you. Yeah, I did remember something like that, but I thought I would just double check.
Sure,
Technology changes all the time, so I thought I'd
sure
check.
does. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thanks, Lynn. Anybody else has any questions? Feel free to jump into chat with our support team, shoot us an email, ask us on your next call if you have anything scheduled. Otherwise, thanks again for jumping on, and we'll see you here in a few weeks in June. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.